Well, Mike and Nick, tell us why you wrote the Unlearning Leader.
Well, Doug, we wrote the book because we know that through our experiences, we've had to unlearn some of the old ways, some of the ways that made us successful in the past, and some of the structures in order to deal with the current generation and the current learning system. We wrote the book because we have been studying and learning about how our school system that was created in the 1890s from the Committee of 10 really served us well for the 19th and 20th century. But right now, we're entering a new economy, a new world, a new global experience, and the skills of the future are not those that created the factories and the manufacturing society. In fact, they're great and creative, and we need to unlearn what has brought us to this point, and it's challenging to unlearn because we're such a successful people in such a successful country. And what we want to do is help leaders like ourselves who are addressing the change, the exponential change that's going on with respect to technology, the consumption of information, the production, and we want to help them lead school systems and lead organizations that are going to be fluid and dynamic to help create the future that we need for our today's young people.
Why do you use the term unlearning?
Appreciate you asking
that title come from? It's a fascinating title. It caught my
Thank you.
attention immediately. Explain a bit how you came up with that title.
Sure. We have been studying some work of a futurist named Jack Aldrich, and there was an assembly or a presentation where he asks the audience, what color is a yield sign? And people say, that's an odd question. And he says, okay, if you think it's yellow and white, raise your hands. If you think it's red and white, raise your hands. Well, people of a certain generation raise their hands when he says, is it yellow and white? Now, intellectually and cognitively, I believe many of us, or all of us, know that a yield sign is actually red and white. However, we were taught many years ago, we were taught that it was yellow and white. And when we learned how to drive, which was important to us, we learned that it was yellow and white. So even though we know it's different, we still have learned it was yellow, so it's difficult for us to fight that learning. And if we apply that on a balcony scale to all of the research that's come out in education and in brain research over the last 50, 60 years, we know that certain of our practices aren't right anymore and don't meet the needs of all children. Yet similar to that yield sign, we have discovered that many of our leader colleagues have not been unlearning, and therefore they've been stagnant and their organizations have been stagnant. Those who've been able to unlearn are realizing incredible success. And Nick and I like to go where the smart people are and learn how to be smarter and learn how to be better. And we've seen people who've unlearned, and we're trying to tell their stories as well as our own.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Nick, would you like to add anything, Nick?
Sure. As I listen to Mike talk about this, it makes me go back to the beginning question of what was the purpose of us writing this book. And I think for me, a large part of it was just actively processing this concept for myself and getting it out on paper to work through the ideas as I try to figure out who I want to be as a leader for my communities and my schools, my students. When I think about the schools that I went to and the educational experience that I had, it's very similar to what my parents had. It's very similar to what my grandparents had. And I know that the world is changing so fast that if I do that same, if I apply that same model on the students we have today, I'm doing them an injustice, because the world is changing so fast. That educational model, while worked great for me and for you and for my parents, we need to change. We need to adapt. We have to unlearn those old practices to make room for the new learning, the new practices that are going to actually help our current students and our future students.
So basically updating the educational model to match new times, kind of in a nutshell, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Now, Nick, why don't you tell us a bit about the book in a nutshell? What are the chapters of the book? Just give us a sense of its content.
Sure. Yeah, the book The book was written in a way that we wanted to look at different aspects of education and apply that lens of unlearning. So in Chapter 1, we talk about unlearning connections, that there are new ways available for people to connect with other school leaders in their communities, in their states, in the country, and in the world. And so helping people get to that understanding of the new ways to connect. Chapter 2, we talk about the change process and unlearning the old ways of planning and applying change and finding new ways that are more relevant. Chapter 3 is helping people unlearn that idea of that's the way we've always done it. That to help people get beyond those, those concepts of, well, why do we have 3 months off in the summer? And why do we put all of our desks in columns and rows? And how can we get past those, the way we've always done it type things? Chapter 4 is dedicated to unlearning a fear of social media and understanding the power that's there for our students and for education. Chapter 5 is unlearning professional development. What are the ways that we can make our schools better and support our teachers, support teaching and learning today? And then finally, Chapter 6 is unlearning leadership. What does it mean to be a leader in this day and age and for the schools of the future? That's just kind of a rundown of the chapters. There's a bunch of different components we've put in there to support this. I don't know if it makes sense. Mike, do you want to talk about some of the other components we have in the book?
Sure, absolutely. At the end of each chapter, we have what we're calling a unique feature that we're aligning towards Soup Chat, S-U-P-T-C-H-A-T. As a quick side note, Nick and I co-moderate the Twitter chat monthly, the first Wednesday of each month at 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. It's called Soup Chat, and it's a space where superintendents and educational leaders gather on a monthly basis for professional learning and things of that nature. In our book, every chapter, we've got this feature at the end where we stop, understand, plan, and think, and that correlates and corresponds to SUPT, and we ask the reader to think through what have they just learned, how can they plan for some takeaway immediately, and how can they think about how the content in the chapter will apply right now in real time to their leadership. And also, Doug, Nick and I have gained a great deal of information, insight, and strength from Kouzes and Posner and their leadership challenge. And what we've done is we have loosely tied our framework to their 5 exemplary practices of leadership. Model the way, inspire a shared vision, challenge the process, enable others to act, and encourage the heart. And there will be featurettes in each of the 6 chapters that are addressing those concepts as they relate to our unlearning concepts.
And this is their book, The Leadership Challenge, right?
Yes, and I do believe a new edition is coming out next May.
I have it right here on my bookshelf. It's a
Wonderful
brilliant book. So, you read the book. What do you take away? What are the concrete benefits for the reader? And you want to take that, Mike?
Sure. In addition to the reflection questions, which are going to drive some thinking, and the Soup Chat feature at the end, which is going to have that end-of-chapter reflection, we have included the voice of several current practitioners, several current superintendents and a principal who have written essentially a blog post that is at the end of our chapter to help the reader see the content that we're sharing, and then the voice from another practitioner. So one of the takeaways is that you're going to get the voice of practicing leaders who have realized certain levels of success through trial and error, through failing and succeeding in real life, real time, all across the country. We have voices of different folks, so it is a complement to the work that we have. We also are going to see the reader take away a connection between the Leadership Challenge 5 exemplary practices, which have been found and proven and reproven across industry, across leadership organization to be effective traits and attributes of a leader, and we're sharing how the Unlearning Leader also still does model the way, inspire a shared vision, and so on and so forth. So it shows across author connection and across organization and industry connection. we also tie this concept of unlearning to the Twitter chat, Soup's chat, because the Twitter chat in and of itself is a way of relearning connections with people across the country or the world. It's a way of relearning how to connect in real time to get professional support and professional help. And essentially the reader is going to take away that school systems that have been resistant to change or are change averse can change. And we'll share examples in real life and in real recent time as to how opportunities for students are increasing, opportunities for teachers are increasing, and leaders helping one another and unlearning things that are holding them back are going to help them just soar in our current era and in the future.
This really sounds like an exciting book. Where do school boards fit into this picture, this book about unlearning and relearning leadership skills and connecting? What's the board's place in all of this? Nick?
You know, Doug, when Mike and I were writing this book, we had to catch ourselves sometimes that we're not writing a book for superintendents. We're writing a book for school leaders, and that includes boards of education. It includes principals. It includes teachers, and really everybody that's involved in the school process, top to bottom, because this concept of unlearning and creating schools for the needs of tomorrow's students isn't something that one person does. And so where does the Board of Education fit in? Right in the middle of all this. Because if they can't get to that mindset of what do our kids need in order to be adaptable and successful in the future economy, then it doesn't matter what the superintendent or what the principal thinks, because they're the decision makers and they're going to support and provide the resources to help get the schools there. So I would say boards of education are right at the heart of this topic.
So you see them as potential readers. You're really aiming this book at, not just the administrators of districts.
I would say it's written to school board members as much as it is to superintendents and principals and teachers.
Great.
It's whoever this can inspire that mentality of what are some of the old practices we need to unlearn to make room for the new. I think that's who it's written to.
Good. Now, fellows, when can we expect the Unlearning Leader to hit the streets? And what's the projected publication date? And where will people be able to buy the book?
Well, right now the book is set for release from Roman and Littlefield in March of 2017, and currently pre-orders are available at the Roman and Littlefield website. If folks type in the search The Unlearning Leader, they'll be driven to our page. They'll get some additional information, and they can pre-order the book. Once it is out in publication, we expect it to be available through other commercial book ordering venues.
And I can vouch for the fact you're going to want to read the book, everyone. I was privileged to read the manuscript. I think it's a great book. It's going to be a very powerful addition to the leadership literature. So be on the lookout for The Unlearning Leader from Roman and Littlefield. I want to thank you, Mike and Nick, for taking the time to tell us about your new book, and wish you a great afternoon.